Okay. Shalom. Welcome to our very first episode of Jewish Softball More Than a Game, where the stories on the diamond go deeper than the box scores. I'm your host, Maddie Lewis. It is my pleasure to welcome one of my teammates and good friends, my right-hand woman on the field, my shortstop, Arizona Ritchie. Hailing from Stafford, Virginia, Z played collegiate softball at UVA, then took her talents to George Washington for a standout fifth year on the field, all while completing her master's in environmental and sustainability policy. She's currently in her fifth year on the Israeli women's national team. Arizona brings not just athletic excellence to the dirt, but also a deep sense of purpose and leadership to the game. When she's not making diamond plays or dropping push bunts, she's giving softball lessons in the Arlington area and working at Solid Core, all while navigating the job market in search of a full-time opportunity. Let's get into it. How are we doing today?
Hello, thank you. That was so sweet, man. How's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us today. This is our first one, so it should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So we'll just start with where everything started. I know you have a background in baseball, so do I. I feel like we kind of, can connect on that level. How did that route kind of shape who you are as a player and how you approach the game and how, where it's taken you so far?
Yeah, I feel like we have definitely bonded over that, and I feel like every softball player that I know that has started with baseball, it's kind of a bond automatically. But I started playing baseball when I was 4, up until I was 12, I want to say, and I feel like it really did have a positive effect on me as a softball player. I think at that time, baseball was just like way more developed in communities and stuff. And so I think I was able to learn a lot from starting with baseball, like the fundamentals, more game IQ, I feel like. And then on top of that, my dad was a huge influence in teaching me about the game. So yeah, I think you can tell like which fielders specifically started with baseball, and I think that's really cool. There's like this really like smoothness about them. So yeah.
Yeah, I think also like growing up, I mean, baseball was all I ever knew. And, same for you. You were probably just as good or better than the boys at that age. And so there was really no reason to like switch over to softball, right?
A hard time coming to terms with the fact that I was gonna have to play softball for sure.
Yeah, like eventually you kind of realize like, okay, there's gonna be more opportunity, right? And if you do make the switch. So that kind of goes into my next question, like, the recruiting process and, having to go through that and probably getting a little late start to it than most girls. What was that like for you? And then, finally committing to UVA, how did that feel?
Yeah, my recruiting process was kind of all over the place. I I was like not one of those players that was like sending out emails all the time. I was kind of just like, I'm going to play and see what happens. I don't know if that was me not wanting to send emails or just being like, I just want to play and whoever sees me. But so I originally committed to Bucknell in Pennsylvania, I think my sophomore year of high school. And then the coaches ended up leaving. I kind of figured out that wasn't the right place for me without those coaches who were great. And then I don't know, I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. I'm still not going to send anything out to anyone. And then Coach Joe at UVA ended up seeing me at a tournament. And that's really it. Yeah, it was kind of just like UVA from there on. And then for my fifth year, I was going to go to UAB actually in Birmingham. And then the coaches ended up leaving there. And I was like, I'm not going to Alabama anymore. And so pivoted to GW. So it was kind of me going with the flow a little bit more than other people I know.
You want
Yeah,
me
I
to
feel like,
take it, Maddie?
yeah, go for it, Danny.
Okay. All right. I was awkward silence. I wanted to. So first off, that was a really good introduction. Nailed it. So my question for you, Arizona, is kind of how did you first get in touch with the Israeli women's national team?
Yeah, so I think I might have been a sophomore in college at UVA, and one of my teammates she was a senior when I was a freshman, so she was graduated by this time. She was also Jewish. She somehow got in touch with them. I still don't know how that happened today. But she basically just told me about it, and I was kind of hesitant at first because like you, I'd never heard of such a thing. And yeah, and then I ended up talking to Ami a little while later, and it all just rolled from there.
Yeah, I think it's like so like we talked about this earlier, but just getting the word out there and making people aware like how do you feel like that kind of plays into your motivation to like keep going and stick with it, especially like knowing that there's not that many Jewish softball players in the world? How does that kind of impact like you staying with it?
I think we've talked about this. You've definitely felt it when you're out there playing with your team, like for Israel and kind of representing the Jewish people. It's just like a sense of pride that keeps you going. Because, we don't play college softball anymore. There's like probably a million good reasons for us to not play anymore. But I don't know. I feel like every time you do play with your team for such a big cause, like it just sucks you back in. And I do want to get the word out that, I mean, Jewish people are good athletes and Israel is something to be proud of. So, yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely. I think that's really important. And, I've always watched like the college, NCAA tournament, even the other day with, Liberty upsetting A&M. I saw MLB actually posted about it. And I was like, wow, that's pretty big. I
Yeah.
don't know if they necessarily would have done that 5 years ago, even. So seeing that in itself, I was like, wow, like this is coming along really well. It's really exciting to watch. I actually like watching it more in college baseball. So, I mean, for you as a player, on the international stage and the college stage, what game is it a completely different game or is it just the same game, just in another country?
I think both. I think when you're actually playing the games, it's mostly the same game. There's some differences with like how we scout and stuff. Like I don't know the teams as well as I did for my opponents in college, but the game is still the game, and your teammates, you still connect with them. And I guess the toll it has on your body could be a little bit different. I feel like when we're at the Canada Cup or like a training camp, it's like, why does my body feel like this? And obviously Maddie and I are out of college softball, so that's probably why. But even when I was in college still, it was like for some reason just a bigger toll on the body. But yeah.
Yeah, what do you do to kind of prepare for that, like leading up to the tournaments? I mean, for me, it's like we have such a long off season, it feels like. So, what's it like staying in it, and how do you get your body prepared for, a week long of intense softball and then, a few weeks off and then going back at it again
Yeah,
and then
that's a great question. I think now I focus a lot more on nutrition and honestly less like skill all the time, because I know I have that. Like I have the fundamentals. And so probably like nutrition and making sure my body's like in shape for the tournament. Those are really important. It seems to always happen that I pull a hammy or a quad by the end of the tournament. So when I'm like training, I try to just make sure that that doesn't happen, and like destroy my legs in training. But yeah, probably those are my main focuses. I think it has been difficult, like not having a team to train with. So kind of just like trying to stay disciplined and like motivated is a challenge, I'd say.
yeah, I think I wish I would have taken care of my body the way I do now, like I did in
Yeah.
or instead of like what I did in college. I mean, there's a lot going on in college with like just like socializing and trying to have a college experience and trying to balance everything. But now I feel like obviously it's a little bit more important as we get older, but I just feel like that plays such a big part on your performance, like on and off the field.
Yeah. And to your point, I think the nutrition piece was like the biggest difference from college me to me now. I've just realized how important it is, and I wasn't really like educated on that in college, or I guess I was, but I didn't care as much.
Totally understand that. I kind of want to touch on, you being a softball instructor. So when you're giving your lessons, do you hope your young athletes, take away something beyond the lesson and beyond the skills you're teaching them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in college I struggled mentally sometimes with the game. I would sometimes have performance anxiety, get really in my head, and that was like a constant battle throughout college. And so I try to kind of create an environment where like everything's chill, like at the end of the day, like an error is an error, like whatever. And on top of that, I think I try to connect with them on a personal level and kind of figure out like what makes them tick, because I think everyone learns differently. and I don't like a cookie cutter approach to sports and athletes. So probably those two things.
What are the ages that you usually train?
So usually it's like high school mostly, but I have high school girls mostly. I have been training a little bit like younger boys, which is a really cute experience. Definitely teaching me a lot about it's I feel like it's way harder to coach little kids and like figure out how to like make an impact with them, for me at least. So
Yeah, I mean, younger kids are always you one day they're listening, even
yeah.
1 minute they're listening, the other minute they're off doing something. But just to follow up to that, so what do you think is the most important age for a girl playing softball to develop the most? Is it middle school? Is it high school? Or is it even before all that in elementary school?
Wow, that's a good question. I think from my experience, I love that I started so young and I didn't even really know like what it was all going to become. I was just like, I love throwing this ball around. And so I think that piece is really important, because if you start maybe late middle school or early high school, it's like so much pressure and everyone's talking about recruiting and making sure you have a softball Twitter account and like all this stuff that like Maddie and I probably didn't have to deal with. I feel like the younger you start, just the more rooted you are in your sport and in who you are kind of in that sport. So I would say that the younger the better.
Yeah, going back to a few points you made, just like coaching, once you've graduated and still playing like, summer to summer, I feel like being able to be an instructor kind of like helps you stay in it as well, right? Like there's always that saying where it's like, you know your stuff when you can like teach it to other people. And I feel like, and I say this all the times, like you can always learn more and more about this game, like whether you're the one figuring out as you go and like telling people or coaching your athletes. So I feel like that's a big part of like staying in the game, whereas if we were working like regular 9 to 5 jobs and not having anything to do with softball, like it would be a lot harder to continue to like be motivated and grind.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. 100%.
So
So,
what would you, oh, go ahead, Danny. Nope,
no,
you go.
no, no, all you.
I was gonna ask, so when did you realize like being Jewish was different, and what was it like growing up for you, like, in your household?
Yeah. I would say I realized being Jewish was different when I got to school. I don't know if that was like kindergarten, but definitely like later elementary school. Stafford, Virginia, where I'm from, is not very populated with Jewish people at all. So I think going to school, maybe some Jewish holidays I'm taking off for that, in Brooklyn, New York, everyone has school off for, but I'm just like skipping school. And so that is definitely like a moment where I realized. And then I also realized when people found out I was Jewish, it was like mind blowing to them. Like, you're Jewish. That was something very common for me and my siblings. I think we were in high school, me and my sister were two of like three Jewish people that we knew. So growing up, I kind of just always knew. And then I guess in terms of my household, me and my mom and all my siblings are Jewish, and my dad is actually Catholic. So I was exposed to like other religion, which was good. We were fully like always Jewish and would kind of do like holidays for him. And it was very clear that it was like, this is for dad. So I think it was good to be in an interfaith family, sort of, just for tolerance and kind of having perspective on things and all that.
Must have been quite the experience then when you joined, Team Israel and were then surrounded by Jews.
I've said this before, probably Maddie, I've talked to you about it. That was the first time I was with so many Jewish people that were like me, kind of like in the sports aspect too, because I obviously like went to Hebrew school and stuff, but I didn't really make like good friendships there. Just didn't like shake out that way. But once I joined Team Israel, it was like, wow, I'm like these people in like every sense. So that was really nice.
Yeah, you feel like a sense of connection knowing that other people are Jewish. Like Danny and I have never met, but like we have this connection just because we're Jewish and kind of have the same, whether it's backgrounds or just like passions for similar things, and Judaism being one of them, like that just goes a long way.
100%. Yeah, I think when I first joined, it was like a common theme that everyone was just like, wow, we are gelling like so quickly, which is awesome. So I agree.
So now that you're entering year 5 with the women's national team, what are your goals for this upcoming year and what do you hope to achieve as a team?
I mean, obviously we want to like win the tournaments that we are entered in. I think that's probably like the next step goal, because I think we come in fourth and we come in sixth, and I think we came in ninth one year, and we're usually like getting better every year. So in terms of an immediate goal, I'd say get better again and get a better place and win. Long term for the program is obviously an Olympic bid and stuff. But I feel like for our program, it's just like one step at a time is the way to go. Because I think we are trying to just like build the foundation a little bit. So.
Yeah,
What would
absolutely.
you what would you say has been your favorite experience or like favorite memory being part of the team?
There's so many. Obviously the traveling. Um, and I think there's like a certain point in the tournament, probably for all teams, where you get like delirious a little bit and where you like bond with your teammates the most during those times. So probably those moments. And then, just like the energy of certain tournaments, like Spain was great. And just like, I think some of my favorite moments were like when we shouldn't be winning or when we shouldn't be doing as well against a certain team and we are. I think those times are awesome too. So
Yeah, I agree. And like there's so much time in between tournaments that like it can feel like such a grind in the moment, but then when we all get together, it's like kind of like a weight lifted off your shoulder, like, okay, that was worth it, right? Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
whole waiting and the whole like, staying in it and trying to be prepared, like it just feels good when we all can come together and like you said, start beating teams that people don't expect and like making a name for ourselves and continuing to like grow Israel's name and brand.
Yeah, 100%.
So I want to go back to, Israel softball and, growing that side of the game in Israel and even here. What do you think needs to happen in order to grow the game for Israel softball here in the States, also in Israel? If you know, if you don't know the Israel part, that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I'll actually tackle the Israel part first because that's a shorter answer. But I think in terms of what I am in control of and what Maddie and our other teammates are in control of is like staying connected to people in Israel. And I want to be like a part of the program even after I stop playing. So those things I think will develop the game in Israel. And yeah, I think that's the most important, like keeping people who are done playing connected to the program and connected to people in Israel, teammates in Israel, and that kind of thing. In terms of in the States, I would say kind of doing what you're doing, which is getting the word out and again, making like strong connections with the Jewish community all over, which is nice because we have so many teammates from different parts of the US. So yeah, I think that's huge. And just getting the word out that, we're a good team and we're, trying to develop the foundation and stuff.
Growing up, did you ever think that you'd become a dual citizen of Israel? And what was that feeling like, leading up to Euros when once it finally went through? Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I never thought about that as an option for me. I think everyone's always like, oh, I can't wait to go to Birthright. That's when I'll go to Israel. So that was like really cool that I got that opportunity. But yeah, in terms of getting the citizenship and stuff, it was hectic. It was fast paced. It was really cool to be in Israel and be like working for that and get it like with your teammates. It was just really special. And then, and then we got to go play straight from there after I got my citizenship. So it was really like rewarding going through that process, I'd say.
Sounds like it. I mean, Aliyah is a big deal, and I think especially now, being Jewish means a lot more to everyone than it did maybe a year ago, year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So, one of my last questions for you here is there's a young girl or even a young boy out there, Jewish, kind of scared, maybe don't know if it's okay, in baseball or in softball. What advice do you have for them?
Good question. I would say that it's totally fair to be scared right now. And I've talked to Maddie about this, but when we were in Israel, we got to meet a Holocaust survivor, and we were able to ask her some questions. And my question to her was, "What do you do in the world now with like so much anti-Semitism?" And she said, "Continue to live with pride and joy all the time, or else the bad guys win." So I would tell them, don't let anyone or fear like take your pride or your joy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good thing to come back to, like in the tournaments when like maybe things aren't going so well or like we're struggling at the plate or whatever it might be, like kind of looking down and remembering like why you're doing it and kind of grounds you a little bit and pulls you back in to see the big picture.
Yeah, 100%. Every single year with Team Israel, I'm called back to that moment that I asked her that question. Yeah, that was like a really powerful experience.
Well, I got two more questions for you. One, when we go, kind of going back to Danny's questions about growing the game in Israel, every year we go to Euros with like a few Israelis with us as well. And they look at us like we're kind of superstars, right? So, how does that, just seeing bigger picture, how does that kind of intertwining with them and having them integrated into our team, how does that kind of keep you motivated into continuing to spread Israel softball and grow the game over there?
Yeah, that really opened my eyes when I saw how they like reacted to us, and when I was in Israel practicing how different everything was. So that is like a really important piece to me. And I think like specifically with a couple teammates that live in Israel, I always like try to stay connected with them, and I'll send them like tips because they like when I'm with them, they ask for it and they're asking me questions and all this stuff for infield. And so I think that piece is very, very important to grow the game in Israel because we do want to develop like the fundamentals being taught there and all that stuff. So being able to like send them home with anything that we can teach them, I think is our responsibility in a way.
Yeah, 100%. And like they don't have access to that sort of knowledge or that sort of exposure to the game. So,
And we can like be that for them.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they're still very much like part of our team,
Yeah.
but I think everyone recognizes that like, maybe they're a few steps behind and we need to teach them so that they can start growing it
Yeah.
more. And us too, like, going back to visit and running clinics or whatever it might be, like that's just as important as going out to Euros and placing fourth or fifth or whatever it may be.
And I was about to say, we obviously don't know everything. We're not like the best teachers in the world, but it helps us grow too, exactly like what you just said.
All right, I have one last question. So, you're searching for a full-time position right now. What would be your dream job? And, obviously softball is still very much in your life, but, gotta pay the bills
Yeah.
and make a living. What would be your dream job and how do you like plan to utilize like what you mastered in GW moving forward?
Yeah, good question. I I'm still brainstorming on my dream job a little bit, but overall, how I want to use my master's, I want to make sustainability and sustainable products and consumption more mainstream in the world. That's kind of like my end goal. That's what I'm interested in. I would say, like, okay, a dream job would be the sustainability department for an MLB team or something. I'm super into when you can like combine passions. I think that should be possible everywhere. So if I could combine, sustainability and baseball and sports, that would be really cool. But yeah, on a broad level, sustainable consumption, kind of spreading that word and so that we can have, healthier lives that we're living. So yeah.
Love it. I feel like you and me both, it's like hard to stay away from the game. And so anything we can do to like stay connected to it, even if it's not full time, that's going to be really important. And, something that has to be in our lives.
Yeah, I definitely plan on continuing lessons. I love giving lessons in field, especially. But yeah, and with Team Israel, like I'm hoping that we stay connected forever.
Awesome. Danny, you got anything left you want to
I
touch
like the
on?
thing that you said that you can have, combine your passions because I think, especially nowadays, people are very much like, it's one or the other, and it's not. I think you can do both. You have time for both. You got to manage it, but I think that was just a really good point because I never even thought of it like that until you just said it, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I honestly am very against American work culture, so I also want to spread that word. But yeah, I think I don't think anyone should like pigeonhole themselves into one thing. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Z. It was a great conversation. And I feel like, it's just fun to be able to pick other people's brains, especially, who are part of the Jewish culture and grew up the same way. So this is our first of many episodes on the Jewish Softball More Than a Game podcast. But yeah, I hope we can just continue to spread awareness and grow the game and like spread positivity and joy about, Israel, which all is very important to each and every one of us.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.